The Virginia Cable Telecommunications Association and your local cable provider presents Cable Reports. Join us now as Cable Reports brings you up to date on current issues facing the Commonwealth through discussions with your local legislators and other policymakers from across Virginia.
Welcome from the General Assembly and the City of Richmond. I'm Woody Evans for Cable Reports and Comcast. We have begun a new session here in Richmond, year 2014, and we are very fortunate to have one of our sterling delegates from Prince William County, Delegate Rich Anderson. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, Woody. Good to be here again.
Well, congratulations. I know that you have some new committee assignments that I think our viewers need to hear about.
Well, I showed up here with some hints that I might end up on the House Appropriations Committee, which, of course, for your viewers, that's the Budget Writing Committee. For the last 4 years, the first 2 terms sat on the House Finance Committee, which does tax policy. So now I get to look at it from a different angle, those who write the budget that appropriates money that's collected for the Commonwealth. I had some indications that might happen, no assurances, but some indications, and it did. And so I'm pleased by that simply because it gives a legislator a clearer perspective on what the state's priorities are and where our interests lie. What was a surprise to me is the Speaker designated me as chair of one of the General Laws subcommittees, and also as chair of one of the Transportation Committee subcommittees. So I'm pretty pleased by that. It'll give me a chance to delve deeper into those issues and learn them to greater depth.
And as we often say, congratulations and condolences, because I know that increases your workload.
Yes,
so why don't you give
does.
us an idea of a day in the life of a Rich Anderson here?
Well, a day in the life of Rich Anderson is probably pretty much like the day in the life of most legislators. It's usually a pretty early call to get into the office. I try to get in around 7-ish, 7:30, and on a really luxurious morning, if I don't have a committee meeting, sometimes 8 o'clock, but it's pretty much at the front end of the day. But for me, because I have so many committee assignments, I'm on a total of 4 committees and all the subcommittees associated with that, I find that I don't get any desk time during the day. I have one policy, and that is I never close my door. It's pretty much an open pathway for anyone who wants to come see me, particularly constituents from home that are down here. So I don't get any desk time till probably about 6 or 7 p.m. So I tend to stay till about midnight or 1 in the morning, go back and grab a power nap of several hours and come right back. The session lasts 2 months, so that's pretty doable for 2 months. We are able to do in 2 months what the Congress doesn't seem that they can get done in an entire year, so it's doable.
And I also know that you serve on a Military and Veterans Commission as a result of the previous governor's appointment.
Right. Well, here right now in the General Assembly, I chair the General Assembly Military and Veterans Caucus. Which essentially consists of all 140 members of the General Assembly, House and Senate. Military and veterans issues are a very unifying issue. Both parties, both houses have come together to support the 830,000 plus veterans who call Virginia home. As a result of that, though, earlier in 2013, after we finished the legislative session in late February, then Governor Bob McDonnell created what is known as the Virginia Commission on Military Installations and Defense Activities, which was designed to focus on the challenges to Virginia with sequestration and with the potential for base realignment and closure commission acts, actually shutting down or reducing the number of military installations in Virginia. And so he formed a blue ribbon group. I was privileged to be part of that group. It was largely comprised of recently retired senior military officers at the 3-star and 4-star level. So it was a very distinguished group. I felt thankful to be immersed in their work and to develop a broader perspective, which was really important in Northern Virginia, because Northern Virginia and Hampton Roads are military centers of excellence that also host a very sizable veteran population. So I was privileged to do that. The chairman of that committee was recently retired 4-star Admiral John Harvey, And I was very pleased to see that the governor has designated him as the Secretary of Veterans Affairs and Homeland Security. He's the right guy at the right time for the right job.
And apparently the governor is receiving high marks about his cabinet appointees, especially three, I believe, who are holdovers from the previous administration in finance and in health, very important positions.
Correct. And a number of the committees that I'm on, we have heard from those secretaries designate. They've come to talk to the appropriate committees that have oversight of their areas of expertise. And I do like the cabinet that the governor has nominated. And I think generally people are in agreement on that. So I'm very pleased with what I've seen so far.
Now, is the Commonwealth at risk as a result of sequestration and the reliance on the federal government, not only in terms of the number of military installations statewide, but just in terms of the jobs that the federal government has in Virginia?
Well, if sequestration over the course of the next decade proceeds to full roar, that's obviously going to have a tremendous impact, particularly in Northern Virginia and Hampton Roads for the reasons that I mentioned a moment ago. The governor, of course, last night mentioned that in his remarks to the General Assembly, saying that he wanted to see us move out in areas of workforce diversification to diversify the economy and insulate us from that dependence on the federal government. As a Republican, that resonated with me, so I appreciated hearing those remarks.
Did he give any specific proposals about how he wanted to do that, or is he leaving that to the General Assembly?
Well, I don't know if he's necessarily leaving it to the General Assembly. I'm sure he's going to have his team articulate a number of goals in that area now that they are underway and inaugurated. But he will certainly work in partnership with the General Assembly. And, of course, the General Assembly is, I'm certain, going to insist that its voice be heard, and together we can wed those things together and move ahead.
Now, talk to us about the importance of job creation as that relates to our returning veterans, and what the General Assembly and the Commonwealth can do to encourage small businessmen.
Well, job creation, as it applies to military veterans, is absolutely crucial. You've hit a subject that's vitally important, and Virginia's done some good work on that. I'm very pleased with the work that's been done over the last 4 years, and the fact that as chairman of the Military and Veterans Caucus, I've had a piece of that. I can't take credit for that. It's been a team effort all around the government of Virginia. But we've done some very good things. For instance, we have waived the requirement for a one-year residency for separating or retiring military veterans and their dependents to go to school with in-state tuition. They don't have to wait the required statutory 1 year. They can go right to school, get their degree, or get the vocational training they need to move immediately into the job market. And our expectation and goal is that they'll stay in Virginia. That's the beauty of that. And indications are that that's working. We have such a large, as I said earlier, 830,000 plus veteran population in Virginia. I think it's going to take on an added impetus simply because right now, with the downsizing of the United States military and bringing troops home from overseas deployed locations, that's going to put more veterans into the job market. I did a bill last year which created a program in consultation, in partnership with the Virginia Department of Veterans Services called the V3 program, which was short for Virginia Values Veterans Program, and we did the necessary funding for that program. And what that does is that brings in groups of businessmen who have articulated a desire to hire veterans, and we get together with them. The Department of Veterans Services has a vendor who has developed a curriculum, and to train and certify these businesses who want to hire veterans specifically on how to hire them, how to advertise and attract them, and then how to retain them in these full-time jobs. So far, roughly 150 businesses across Virginia have pledged to hire 4,500 veterans, and to date have hired about 3,000 veterans. And these are full-time, well-paying jobs with medical benefits, for instance. They're not part-time jobs. I carried that with Senator Toddy Puller of Prince William. She has a deep and abiding interest in veterans issues. Puller, she's from a Marine family. And so we have worked across the lines to do that. She's been great and very supportive. We did that complimentary legislation. So there have been a number of initiatives. If you look at the docket this year, there's more initiatives underway.
Now, how has the economy fared in Prince William County since the recession?
Well, the economy in Northern Virginia has, I think, it's fared pretty well. As you know, Prince William County is one of the most affluent counties in the country, and so we have fared pretty well. I think it's for two reasons. Reason number one is this has been, particularly over the last 4 years, I believe, a very business-friendly legislature and executive branch, and I hope that that continues, and I expect that will continue. Additionally, in Northern Virginia, we, of course, have a huge footprint from defense-related activities and companies, and so that has helped us there keep our unemployment rate very low. So.
Now, the county has had some difficulties as a result of the housing market because county governments rely heavily on the real estate tax in order to fund our schools, for example, among other things. But I understand that the county has been very frugal, very prudent in terms of how they've handled that. So the school system is still doing well, as I understand it.
Yes, we have all across Northern Virginia and really across the state. We have we have an excellent school system. There's no two ways about it. There are always challenges. It's always a journey, not a destination. But we have an excellent school system there. To your point about foreclosures on homes, beginning in 2009, the foreclosure rate really ramped up in Prince William. There have been a number of initiatives there specifically by various organizations that have helped us begin that process of recovery. So
now, one of the issues that the governor talked about last night relates to schools, standards of learning. For those of us who have grandkids or children in school, we're kind of amazed that at third grade level through high school now, there are a number of these tests they're going to have to take, as many as 34. And I know my grandkids get a little bit freaked out now when it's time to take those tests. So people think it's been 10 years, it's time to take another look at that. What do you feel about that?
Well, I agree with it. And I think this is a point that can unify the Republican and Democratic caucuses in both bodies and across to the administration. I think there is general agreement, as was said last night in the House chamber, that the SOLs have served us well, but it's time to modernize that system of evaluating our students and to move to the next step. I don't profess to be an education expert. I'm not an educator. I have not spent time. I don't sit on the House Education Committee. So my efforts have largely been self-education on issues of public instruction. I spend quite a bit of time in Prince William County schools. I try not to let a week go by where I don't go to a school. I have 17 schools in the district that I'm privileged to represent. And so with principals and teachers, I've had the opportunity to learn some of these things firsthand. One of the things that I did this past May at the invitation of the principal of Woodbridge Senior High School in May, he asked me to come and simply walk the halls with him and to observe how SOL testing takes place. I had never seen it happen, and I walked away there convinced that just as the dialogue is underway now, we have got to move to the next generation of how we evaluate our students and to move to a place where we're not embracing a system that requires pretty much, or the net result is that teachers teach to the test.
Right.
And so I'm in agreement with everything I've heard across the aisle on both sides about the need to modernize this system, and I think the early effort is encouraging.
Yeah, I think there's at least one member of the General Assembly and the House of Delegates who actually took a Standards of Learning test. I think it's Joseph Yost.
Really?
From Giles County.
I didn't know
he's
that.
27 years old.
Uh-huh.
So I believe he's taken one of those tests, and he's got a lot to say about that. Let's talk about some of your legislation.
Okay.
Civics education is something
Right.
that you're sponsoring this year.
Well, I'm very interested in that. One of the things the Speaker appointed me to my first term was to sit as a member of the Virginia Commission on Civics Education, and the following year the members of the Commission elected me as chair, and today I still chair the Commission. The whole mission of the Commission is to simply encourage schools to spend to emphasize more civics education, history, and Virginia and local government studies for their students, because today's curriculum is very crowded, and particularly with these emerging and now maturing STEM disciplines, which are definitely needed, but it has
technology, engineering, math.
And math.
Yes.
And now they have a health dimension, STEM-H, added to that. At any rate, the Commission encourages students and teachers to spend more time and more emphasis on civics education and the importance of getting engaged in the public square, in the public life of the community. The focal point of that whole commission is we plan and execute in November of every year what's called the Virginia Civics Summit. We do it here in the Virginia State Capitol, bring in 100 to 130 teachers who want to attend, and we talk about some dimension of Virginia state government, the executive branch, legislative, judiciary, or other state government operations, to motivate them to go home and share that enthusiasm with their students. So I'm very pleased to be involved with that group. The whole focus of this bill is to reauthorize the Virginia Commission on Civics Education because it has a sunset. It only exists for 4 years at a time. Then we reevaluate it and decide whether to renew its lease online.
And of course, concussions have still been an item of concern, and I know you have a bill dealing with student athletes and concussions.
I do. Presently, the Virginia Code delineates that schools for student athletes will develop protocols on how to recognize and treat potential concussions when a student has had a hard hit at an athletic event. Right now, those standards are not applied to non-scholastic athletic events. And what this bill will do will be to have these non-scholastic teams embrace the school's protocols, or to develop similar protocols of their own. And these are for teams who opt to use school property. So it's a safety measure for these young student athletes.
And transportation, which is still a big issue. Congratulations on last year's transportation bill. That was a very significant effort. Now we've got to implement it. But I know you still have some interest in smart transportation pilot zones. Correct.
This bill is in response to what the Speaker has been articulating in his travels around the Commonwealth of Virginia. Speaker Howe has articulated roughly a half dozen initiatives that he thinks the Commonwealth should embrace, and now that we have moved beyond House Bill 2313 of last year and are moving into execution. And so that's a bill to begin some early initiatives working with the Virginia Tech Institute that focuses on transportation technology. So I'm looking forward to going down to Virginia Tech and spending some time with them, because I spent 4 years there in the 1970s.
So what's happening just generically in terms of transportation, especially with reference to Prince William County? Now, there is a lot of construction. The HOV is being extended. But beyond that, what else is going on, and what do you anticipate in terms of the kinds of priorities that are set this coming year and the years thereafter?
Well, right now, probably the premier transportation initiative that's underway in Prince William is the construction of the high occupancy toll lanes, hot lanes, which will replace the traditional HOV lanes. Those should open in roughly 1 year from now. So that's been considerable focus in Prince William County. with new revenues that flow from the passage in February of 2013 of House Bill 2313. Those funds are now being apportioned by the Northern Virginia Transportation Commission to specific projects. I'm aware of some initiatives along Route 1 and some other initiatives that are underway right now. So Prince William County will benefit from some of those road construction projects.
And of course, the county will be involved with the State Transportation Board in terms of the prioritization of funding for specific projects.
Right. The Commonwealth Transportation Board, or CTB, is responsible for that. I note, and I'm not familiar with the specific legislation, but there are several pieces of legislation that are in the hopper this year dealing with structure and operation of the CTB. I'll like everyone else, I'll be getting more familiar with those bills as they make their way through the General Assembly. But the CTB has empowered these regional transportation commissions, since they're closer to the action, to make determinations about where some of that money is spent.
Tell us the importance of another piece of legislation you have introduced that has to do with human remains.
Well, that is a huge issue in Prince William County. We are in the process of constructing a 12th high school in Prince William County, and in the process of clearing wooded over land, there were some dozen graves discovered.
Really?
And through research, they determined that it belonged to a family by the name of Lynn that had settled that area from well, in the 19th century. Mm-hmm. And these graves appear to have be from the period of the Civil War through the early 1900s.
Wow.
In Prince William County, Lynn is a well-known name. There was a Fred Lynn who, before my entry into public life, had spent a long and distinguished career on the school board, so he's part of that family, and there's even a Fred Lynn middle school named in his honor. At any rate, a determination was made by the school division in Prince William to relocate those graves to accommodate the construction of the school. What ensued from there was, let's call it, community consternation. And my concern is that we at the state level had not laid out criteria for making the decisions about disinterring, relocating, and then reinterring graves. And so, so that bill will hopefully give our localities a greater degree of clarity on exactly the protocols to follow. So that's what that's all about. I'm very appreciative of the fact that the school division in Prince William has now made a determination to relocate those remains back in the same vicinity instead of relocating them to a different part of the county.
I want to ask you a question about the reaction at the local school district level to the bill that created a statewide authority that could take over failing schools. I don't think Prince William suffers from that at all, but there are about 4 schools around the Commonwealth that are having significant problems.
Right. To be quite honest with you, Woody, I haven't heard a lot of talk in Prince William from either school board members or school division officials about that, because, as you say, we don't have that problem in Prince William. I did vote for that legislation, feeling that if a locality was struggling to bring 1 or more schools up to standards, then the state should step in with a helping hand and assist with taking those schools and returning them to a performing institution for its students, parents, and teachers. And so, so that's pretty much where that is right now.
Now, you mentioned Virginia Tech, and as we all know, we're still suffering the consequences of a tragedy that occurred there a number of years ago, but it's back in the news given the tragedy that occurred to one of your colleagues who happens to be in the state Senate. And so mental health is on the agenda again, so I wanted to get your views on what's likely to happen, what you think about the necessity to institute reforms.
Well, I think that there are reforms needed. It's quite obviously that incident in Bath County, which brought it home to all of us in the General Assembly, because the senator's family illustrates that that was one of our own. It put a human face on it. But it is a pervasive problem, not just across the Commonwealth, but across the country. And I think we've got to focus on mental health in the same way that we focus on physical health. And so I really look forward to the dialogue that ensues. You know, coincidentally, I saw something on YouTube. I stumbled across it quite by accident, and it was some excerpts, some films of the 1969 gubernatorial campaign here in Virginia.
Really?
In which several people were speaking, several of the candidates were speaking about Virginia's need to adequately fund the mental health needs of our citizens. And here we are, 40 years plus years later, half century later, having the same conversation. So it's time to do something.
It is. I guess the fundamental concern is balancing the civil liberties of the person who may
Correct.
have some mental disabilities
Mm-hmm.
in terms of confinement
Mm-hmm.
versus the needs of public safety.
Correct. And we'll figure that out.
Right.
There's always tension between various things as you try to find the right middle ground, and I think that we'll do that. We certainly have the motivation because right now we have seen the needs of one of our own, and you can amplify that across the Commonwealth, the needs of a larger citizenry.
We've got about a couple of minutes remaining, but there seems to be a lot of agreement with the new governor's proposals. The one outlier, of course, is Medicaid expansion.
Correct.
And, of course, last night he called for a budget amendment that would speed up the Medicaid, the Medicaid Commission that right now is supposed to make a decision by 2016. He wants that done by the end of this year.
He wants to accelerate it
Right.
within the
Right.
next couple of months, is what
Right.
he said last night in his remarks to the joint session of the General Assembly. And as you know, in 2013, as part of the budget process, the General Assembly created what was called the MIRC, M-I-R-C, Medicaid Innovation and Reform Commission. And it's a reform-first effort to fix the deficiencies that we perceive in Medicaid administration in the state, and then from there make a decision about potential expansion to 400,000 people. It's obviously a contentious issue because on one hand, one can make a case that there are legitimate needs for these 400,000 people, or at least a portion of them, and then by the same token you can make a case about the challenges we'll have in terms of revenues and budget to make that happen, because Medicaid is such a consuming piece of the state budget. I think it's about 22% of the budget right now and growing.
Great. Well,
so it's a challenge.
We're glad to have you here. Good luck on all your pieces of legislation.
Thank
Good
you.
luck on that Medicaid issue. We hope to get you back in the near future.
All right. Thank you, Woody.
Our guest has been Delegate Rich Anderson from Prince William County. Thank you for watching Cable Reports, brought to you by the Virginia Cable Telecommunications Association and Comcast. Until next time, I'm Woody Evans.